The story of trees begins deep in the geologic past, approximately 385 million years ago. Before this time, the land was covered mostly by small plants and mosses, but the evolution of wood changed the world forever. The very first trees were not like the oaks or pines we see today, but were strange fern-like structures that rose up to capture sunlight, and in doing so, they created the very first forests on Earth. These ancient forests drew massive amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and cooled the planet significantly, which allowed for new types of life to emerge. Over millions of years, trees evolved into the diverse and complex giants we know today, and they became the dominant plants on land. To understand how a tree works, one must look at its anatomy, which is designed to connect the earth to the sky. It begins with the roots, which are often as extensive as the branches above. The roots anchor the tree into the soil to prevent it from falling over in the wind, but their primary job is to absorb water and minerals from the ground. Fine root hairs seek out moisture and establish relationships with fungi in the soil. This relationship is mutually beneficial because the fungi help the tree access nutrients it cannot reach on its own, and in return, the tree provides the fungi with sugars it produces through photosynthesis. From the roots, the water travels up into the trunk, which is the main support structure of the tree. The trunk is made of wood, which is essentially old inactive cells that have hardened to provide strength. Inside the trunk there are transport tissues called xylem and phloem. You can think of xylem as a system of microscopic pipes that carry water and dissolved minerals upward from the roots to the leaves. This movement of water is driven by transpiration, which is the evaporation of water from the leaves. As water evaporates at the top, it pulls more water up from the bottom like a straw. Phloem is the other transport tissue, and it carries the sugars created in the leaves downward to feed the rest of the tree, including the roots. The outer layer of the trunk is the bark, which acts as a protective shield. Bark protects the delicate inner living layers from pests and diseases and fire and physical damage. Different trees have different types of bark. Some have thick and corky bark that is fire-resistant, while others have thin and peeling bark. Just beneath the bark is the cambium layer, which is the only part of the trunk that is actually growing. The cambium produces new wood on the inside and new bark on the outside, which causes the tree to expand in width year after year. This annual growth creates rings inside the trunk, and by counting these rings, humans can determine the age of a tree and learn about the climate conditions of the past. At the top of the tree is the crown, which consists of branches and leaves. The leaves are the food factories of the tree. They contain a green pigment called chlorophyll, which captures energy from the sun. Through the process of photosynthesis, the leaves use this solar energy to convert carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil into glucose, which is a type of sugar. This sugar provides the energy the tree needs to grow and reproduce. As a byproduct of this process, trees release oxygen into the atmosphere, which is essential for animals and humans to breathe. There are two main categories of trees based on how they reproduce and what their leaves look like. The first category is gymnosperms, which are often called softwoods. These trees usually have needles or scales instead of broad leaves, and they reproduce using cones. Most gymnosperms are evergreens, meaning they keep their foliage year-round. Examples of these trees include pines and spruces and firs and cedars and redwoods. These trees are often found in colder climates or areas with poor soil because their needles are coated in wax to prevent water loss, and they can photosynthesize whenever the temperature is warm enough, even in winter. The second category is angiosperms, which are also known as hardwoods or broadleaf trees. These trees reproduce using flowers, and their seeds are enclosed within a fruit or a nut. Most angiosperms are deciduous, meaning they lose their leaves in the autumn and go dormant for the winter. Before the leaves fall, the tree reabsorbs the valuable nutrients from them, which causes the green chlorophyll to break down and reveals the yellow and orange and red pigments that were hidden underneath. This creates the vibrant colors of fall foliage. Examples of angiosperms include oaks and maples and birches and fruit trees like apples and cherries. These trees tend to dominate in temperate and tropical regions where the soil is richer. Trees are distributed unevenly across the planet depending on the climate and rainfall and soil conditions. The largest concentration of trees is found in the tropical rainforests near the equator, such as the Amazon rainforest in South America and the Congo Basin in Africa. These forests are incredibly dense and diverse, and they contain more than half of all the tree species in the world. In these warm and wet environments, trees grow rapidly and fight for sunlight, creating a tall canopy that shades the forest floor. Another major belt of trees is the boreal forest, or taiga, which stretches across the northern latitudes of Canada and Russia and Scandinavia. This is the largest land biome on Earth. The trees here are mostly coniferous evergreens, like spruces and larches, that are adapted to long freezing winters and short summers. In these regions, the trees are often smaller and grow more slowly than in the tropics, but their sheer numbers make them vital for the global carbon cycle. There are areas with fewer trees, such as grasslands and savannas, where there is enough rain for grass, but not enough to support dense forests. In these places, trees are scattered and often have adaptations to survive drought and fire. Deserts have even fewer trees, and the ones that do survive there, like the Joshua tree or the mesquite, have deep root systems or water storage capabilities to withstand the extreme aridity. The only places on Earth with no trees at all are the polar ice caps and the highest mountain peaks where it is too cold and windy for them to survive, and the driest deserts where there is simply no water. The lifespan of a tree varies greatly depending on the species. Some fast-growing trees, like certain poplars or willows, may only live for a few decades. They grow quickly to capture space and sunlight, but their wood is soft and prone to rot. Other trees, like the oak or the beech, can live for hundreds of years, growing slowly and building dense, strong wood that resists decay. Then there are the ancients. The longest living individual trees on Earth are the Great Basin bristlecone pines found in the mountains of California and Nevada. These trees grow in harsh conditions with rocky soil and high winds, which forces them to grow very slowly and creates dense resinous wood that is almost impervious to disease and insects. Some of these bristlecone pines are over 4,800 years old, meaning they were already growing when the pyramids were being built in Egypt. Even older than individual trees are clonal colonies. A clonal colony is a group of genetically identical trees that are connected by a single root system. The most famous example is Pando, which is a colony of quaking aspen trees in Utah. To the naked eye, it looks like a forest of 40,000 individual trees, but underneath the ground, they are all part of one massive living organism. Pando is estimated to be tens of thousands of years old, making it one of the oldest and heaviest living things on the planet. Trees reproduce in many different ways. Some use the wind to carry their pollen from one tree to another. These trees often have small, inconspicuous flowers and produce vast amounts of pollen, which can cause allergies in humans. Conifers rely on wind to blow pollen from male cones to female cones. Other trees rely on insects or birds or bats to pollinate their flowers. These trees usually have showy, colorful flowers with sweet nectar to attract pollinators. Once a tree is pollinated, it produces seeds. Seeds are designed to travel away from the parent tree so they do not have to compete for sunlight and water. Some seeds, like those of the maple tree, have wings that allow them to spin and glide on the wind like helicopters. Other seeds are hidden inside tasty fruits. When an animal eats the fruit, the seed passes through its digestive system unharmed and is deposited in a new location with a bit of natural fertilizer. Some seeds, like acorns, are gathered by squirrels and buried for later eating. But if the squirrel forgets where it buried the acorn, it may germinate and grow into a new oak tree. Some trees even rely on fire to reproduce. The cones of the lodgepole pine are sealed shut with resin and only open to release their seeds when the heat of a forest fire melts the resin. This ensures that the seeds fall onto ground that has been cleared of competitors and enriched with ash. As trees grow, they compete with their neighbors for resources. In a dense forest, the struggle for light is intense. Young saplings may wait in the shade for decades, growing very slowly until a large tree falls and creates a gap in the canopy. Once the light hits them, they surge upward in a race to fill the gap before other trees do. Below ground, there is also competition for water and nutrients, but there is also cooperation. Scientists have discovered that trees in a forest are connected by a vast underground network of fungal threads, often called the wood wide web. Through this network, trees can share resources. A large, healthy tree can send sugars to a younger, shaded tree to help it survive. Trees can even send chemical distress signals through this network to warn their neighbors of insect attacks, allowing the other trees to boost their chemical defenses before the insects arrive. Trees provide habitat for countless other organisms. Birds build nests in their branches, and insects live in their bark, and mammals create dens in their hollow trunks. Lichens and mosses grow on their surfaces, and fungi help decompose their fallen leaves. Even when a tree dies, it continues to support life. A standing dead tree is called a snag, and it provides a home for woodpeckers and owls and bats. When the tree finally falls to the ground, it becomes a nurse log. As it slowly rots, it retains moisture and nutrients, providing a perfect seedbed for new seedlings to grow. The decomposition process releases the nutrients stored in the wood back into the soil to nourish the next generation of the forest. Throughout history, trees have been essential to human survival. We have used their wood to build our homes and our ships and our furniture. We have burned their wood for heat and cooking. We have harvested their fruits and nuts for food, and their bark and leaves for medicine. Rubber comes from the sap of the rubber tree, and maple syrup comes from the sap of the maple tree. Paper is made from wood pulp, and cork is made from the bark of the cork oak. Despite our dependence on them, humans have cleared vast areas of forest for agriculture and grazing and urban development. Deforestation creates problems because trees are critical for stabilizing the climate. They absorb carbon dioxide, which is a greenhouse gas, and store it in their wood and soil. When forests are cut down or burned, that stored carbon is released back into the atmosphere, accelerating global warming. Trees also play a vital role in the water cycle. They intercept rainfall with their leaves, which slows down the water as it falls to the ground and prevents soil erosion. Their roots make the soil more porous, allowing water to soak into the ground and recharge aquifers instead of running off into rivers. Trees also release water vapor into the air, which contributes to cloud formation and rainfall patterns. In cities, trees help to cool the air by providing shade and releasing moisture, which reduces the urban heat island effect. There are trees that have adapted to live in water. Mangroves grow along tropical coastlines in salty water. Their roots grow above the ground like stilts to keep the tree stable in the shifting mud, and to allow the roots to breathe air, which is scarce in the waterlogged soil. Mangroves form dense forests that protect coastlines from storm surges and provide a nursery for fish and other marine life. Cypress trees grow in freshwater swamps and have knees, which are woody projections that stick up above the water from the roots, though scientists are still debating exactly what these knees are for. Every tree species has a unique signature. The white birch has peeling paper-like bark that is white to reflect the harsh winter sun and prevent the tree from heating up too quickly during the day, which could cause the trunk to crack when it freezes again at night. The giant sequoia has bark that can be up to 3 feet thick and is fibrous and fire-resistant, allowing the tree to survive forest fires that would kill lesser trees. The banyan tree sends down aerial roots from its branches that eventually reach the ground and thicken into new trunks, allowing a single tree to spread out and cover a vast area. The seasonal cycle of a tree is a rhythmic process driven by the angle of the sun and the temperature. In the spring, the warming days signal the tree to wake up from its winter dormancy. Sap begins to flow and buds swell and burst open to reveal fresh green leaves and flowers. This is a time of rapid growth and high energy. In the summer, the leaves are fully matured and are working hard to produce sugar. The tree focuses on growing its trunk and roots and ripening its seeds. As autumn approaches, the days get shorter and the temperatures drop. The tree prepares for winter by stopping growth and hardening its new wood. Deciduous trees dismantle their chlorophyll and drop their leaves to prevent water loss and damage from snow and ice. In the winter, the tree is at rest. Its metabolism slows down to a crawl, and it lives off the energy reserves it stored during the summer. It waits patiently for the return of the sun to begin the cycle all over again. Trees are often thought of as passive observers of the world, but they are actually active participants in a constant battle for survival. When a caterpillar bites into a leaf, the tree knows it is being attacked, and it does not sit idly by. It can pump toxic chemicals into its leaves to make them taste bad or to make the insect sick. Some trees, like certain species of acacia, can even communicate this danger to their neighbors. When an acacia is being eaten by a giraffe, it releases a gas called ethylene. When the neighboring trees detect this gas, they immediately flood their own leaves with tannins, which are bitter chemicals that deter the giraffes from eating them. This creates a wave of defense that travels through the canopy faster than the hungry animals can move. Beyond chemical warfare, trees also use physical defenses to stay safe. Thorns and spines are modified branches or leaves that have become sharp and hard to discourage animals from browsing. The honey locust tree grows massive clusters of thorns on its trunk that can be several inches long, protecting it from climbing animals that might want to eat its bark or seeds. The thick bark of the redwood is not just armor against fire, but also contains tannins that protect it from insects and fungi. Even the microscopic silica crystals found in the leaves of grasses and some trees wear down the teeth of animals that eat them over time, acting as a long-term deterrent. Inside a mature forest, the environment is divided into distinct layers like the floors of a tall building. The conditions in each layer are different, and different types of animals and plants live in each one. At the very bottom is the forest floor. This area is very dark because the leaves above block out almost all of the sunlight. It is a place of decomposition where fungi and bacteria break down dead leaves and logs, turning them back into soil. It is humid and still and home to insects and amphibians and small mammals. Above the floor is the understory, which consists of bushes and young trees and plants that are adapted to low light. These plants often have large leaves to catch whatever flecks of sunlight filter down through the branches above. The next layer up is the canopy, which acts as the roof of the forest. This is where the majority of the tree's leaves are located and where 90% of the forest's animals live. In the rainforest, the canopy is a chaotic and vibrant world full of monkeys and birds and frogs and snakes that may never touch the ground their entire lives. The leaves here are exposed to the full force of the sun and the wind and the rain. Above the canopy is the emergent layer, which consists of the very tallest trees that poke up above the green sea of leaves. These giants are subjected to high temperatures and strong winds, and they are often the nesting sites for birds of prey like eagles and hawks that need a high vantage point to hunt. Deep within the center of an old tree lies the heartwood. This wood is no longer alive and no longer conducts water, but it provides the pillar of strength that holds the tree up. As a tree grows, the inner layers of sapwood eventually become clogged with resins and gums and darken in color to become heartwood. This dead core is resistant to rot and insects and gives the tree the structural integrity it needs to support tons of branches and leaves against gravity. If the heartwood rots away, the tree becomes hollow. Surprisingly, a hollow tree can often continue to live and grow for many years because the outer layers of sapwood and cambium are still alive and functioning perfectly well to transport water and nutrients. The process by which a forest grows and changes over time is called ecological succession. If a fire or a landslide clears a patch of forest, the land does not stay bare for long. The first plants to arrive are called pioneer species. These are usually fast-growing plants like grasses and weeds and sun-loving trees like birches or aspens. They stabilize the soil and add nutrients to the ground as they die and decay. As the pioneer trees grow tall, they create shade, which prevents their own seedlings from growing because those seedlings need bright sun. This shade, however, is perfect for different types of trees like oaks or hemlocks, which can grow slowly in low light. Over time, these shade-tolerant trees grow up through the canopy of the pioneers and eventually shade them out, taking over the forest. This final stable state is called a climax community, and it can persist for centuries until another disturbance resets the cycle. Trees have a remarkable ability to adapt to extreme environments. In the high mountains, near the timberline, where the air is thin and the winds are fierce, trees grow in twisted and gnarled shapes. This form is known as krummholz, which is a German word meaning twisted wood. These trees hug the ground to avoid the biting wind and the weight of the heavy snow. Sometimes the wind is so strong from one direction that branches only grow on the sheltered side of the trunk, creating a flag tree that looks like a banner waving in the breeze. In wet swamps, the bald cypress grows knees that poke up from the water to help stabilize it in the soft mud. In dry savannas, the baobab tree grows a massive, swollen trunk that acts like a water tank, storing thousands of gallons of water to help it survive the long, dry season. The impact of trees extends far beyond the physical environment and touches the human mind. The Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, is based on the idea that spending time in a forest is healing. Science has shown that trees release chemicals called phytocides to protect themselves from insects and rot. When humans breathe in these chemicals, it lowers our stress hormones and lowers our blood pressure and boosts our immune system. The visual patterns of trees are also soothing. The way branches split into smaller branches creates a pattern called a fractal. Human eyes are naturally drawn to these fractal patterns, and looking at them creates a physiological relaxation response in the brain, reducing mental fatigue and improving focus. Trees are also the keepers of history. Dendrochronology is the science of dating events and environmental changes by studying tree rings. Each year, a tree adds a new layer of wood. In a wet year, with good growing conditions, the ring will be wide. In a drought year, the ring will be narrow. By looking at the pattern of rings in very old trees and matching them with wood found in ancient buildings or ruins, scientists can create a timeline of climate that goes back thousands of years. They can tell exactly when a castle was built, or when a volcanic eruption caused a year without a summer, or when a civilization collapsed due to a mega drought. The trees recorded it all in their wood. The tallest trees in the world are the coast redwoods, which grow in a narrow strip along the coast of California and Oregon. These giants can reach heights of nearly 400 feet, which is taller than a 30-story building. They grow so tall because of the unique climate, which provides heavy winter rains and frequent summer fog. The trees absorb moisture directly from the fog through their needles, which helps them get water to their very highest branches, where the struggle against gravity is immense. The pressure required to push water up 400 feet is incredible and limits how tall a tree can physically grow. If they were to grow much taller, air bubbles would form in the transport tubes and break the column of water, causing the top of the tree to die. The heaviest organisms on the planet are also trees. The giant sequoias, which are cousins of the redwoods, are not quite as tall, but they are much more massive. The General Sherman tree is the largest known living single-stem tree on Earth by volume. It is estimated to weigh over 2 million pounds. These trees are so large that they create their own ecosystems. Soil builds up in the crotches of their massive branches hundreds of feet in the air, and ferns and berry bushes and even other small trees grow up there in the canopy. Salamanders and earthworms live their whole lives in this aerial soil without ever touching the ground. There is a strange and beautiful phenomenon called crown shyness that occurs in some tree species. If you stand in a forest of camphor trees or eucalyptus and look up, you might see that the tops of the trees do not touch each other. There are channel-like gaps of sky running between the crowns of the trees, almost like a puzzle. Scientists think this happens so the trees do not damage each other when they sway in the wind, or perhaps to prevent the spread of leaf-eating insects from one tree to another. It creates a stunning mosaic pattern against the sky that highlights the individual territory of each tree. Trees are also essential for filtering our water. When rain falls in a forest, it drips through the leaves and down the bark and into the soil. The roots and the microorganisms in the soil act like a giant sponge and filter-trap pollutants and sediment. By the time the water reaches a stream or an underground aquifer, it is clean and clear. This is why many cities protect the forests around their reservoirs. It is much cheaper and more effective to let the trees clean the water than to build expensive water treatment plants. Deforestation leads to soil erosion, which clogs rivers with mud and suffocates fish and destroys coral reefs miles away in the ocean. The relationship between trees and fire is complex. While many trees are destroyed by fire, some are dependent on it. The longleaf pine ecosystem in the southern United States needs frequent low-intensity fires to stay healthy. The fire clears out the brush and grasses that compete with the young pines for resources. The adult trees have thick bark that protects them from the heat. Without fire, the forest becomes overgrown, and the unique biodiversity of the ecosystem is lost. Indigenous peoples around the world have known this for thousands of years and have used controlled burns to manage forests and encourage the growth of useful trees and plants. As we look to the future, trees are becoming more important than ever. In a warming world, they are our best allies. They cool our cities through shade and evaporation, reducing the need for air conditioning. They capture carbon and store it for centuries. Urban planners are now designing cities with vertical forests, where skyscrapers are covered in balconies filled with trees. These living buildings help to clean the air and reduce noise, and provide a connection to nature in the heart of the concrete jungle. Planting a tree is an act of hope and a long-term investment. It is a recognition that life will continue, and that we have a responsibility to care for the planet that sustains us. The wood that trees produce is one of the most versatile materials in existence, and its structure is a marvel of natural engineering. At a microscopic level, wood is made up of cellulose fibers, which give it flexibility, and lignin, which acts as a stiff glue to give it strength. This combination allows trees to sway in strong winds without breaking, while still supporting massive weight. Humans have learned to read the grain of the wood, which is the pattern formed by the alignment of these fibers. In the hands of a master craftsman, a piece of spruce or maple can be turned into a violin or a cello. The wood for these instruments is chosen with great care, often from trees that grew in cold climates, where the slow growth creates tight and even rings, which resonate with sound in a way that synthetic materials cannot match. Beyond the wood itself, trees are producers of a vast array of chemicals and scents that define the atmosphere of a forest. The sharp, clean smell of a pine forest comes from organic compounds called terpenes. These chemicals evaporate into the air and help to cool the forest by aiding in the formation of clouds. When you walk through a eucalyptus grove, the air is filled with a medicinal scent that opens the airways. The camphor tree produces a waxy white substance that has been used for centuries to repel insects and treat ailments. Frankincense and myrrh, which were once valued as highly as gold, are simply the dried sap resin harvested from boswellia and commiphora trees that grow in the arid lands of the Arabian Peninsula and Africa. The sounds of trees are just as varied as their scents. There is a specific word for the sound of wind rustling through the leaves of trees, which is sithurism. The sound changes depending on the type of tree. The wind in a grove of aspens sounds like rushing water or gentle applause, because the stems of the leaves are flat, which causes them to flutter in the slightest breeze. The wind in a pine forest makes a soft hushing or whistling sound as the air moves through the millions of needles. These natural white noises are deeply soothing to the human brain and mimic the sounds of the ocean or falling rain, helping to lull the mind into a state of rest. In the world of trees, there are species that are living fossils. The ginkgo biloba is a unique tree that has no close living relatives. It looks nearly identical to fossils of its ancestors that lived 270 million years ago. It survived the extinction event that killed the dinosaurs. The ginkgo is incredibly resilient and can tolerate pollution and confined spaces, which is why it is often planted in modern cities. Its leaves are distinctively fan-shaped and turn a brilliant saffron yellow in the autumn before falling to the ground, often all at once, creating a golden carpet around the base of the trunk. Another marvel of adaptation is the weeping willow. Native to China, this tree is often found growing near water. Its long, sweeping branches hang down like curtains, sometimes touching the surface of the river or pond. These flexible branches are an adaptation to shed heavy snow and to bend without breaking in the wind. The willow contains salicylic acid in its bark, which is the chemical precursor to aspirin. For thousands of years, people have brewed tea from willow bark to relieve pain and reduce fevers, utilizing the natural medicine factory contained within the tree. Trees also play a crucial role in the nitrogen cycle. While the air is full of nitrogen, trees cannot use it directly. Some trees, like the alder and the locust, have developed a clever solution. They form nodules on their roots where special bacteria live. These bacteria take nitrogen from the air and convert it into a form the tree can use to grow. In exchange, the tree gives the bacteria sugars. This process enriches the soil around the tree, so when the leaves fall or the tree eventually dies, that nitrogen is released back into the ground, acting as a natural fertilizer for other plants. This makes these nitrogen-fixing trees vital for repairing damaged land and preparing the soil for other forests to grow. The relationship between trees and time is different from the human experience. Trees operate on a much slower timescale. A young oak tree might spend its first few years growing a deep taproot to secure a water source before it puts much energy into growing upward. This patience ensures its survival during future droughts. Trees also have a dormant phase, which is similar to sleep. Scientists have used lasers to measure the movement of birch trees at night and found that their branches droop by several inches as the internal water pressure drops. At sunrise, the branches lift up again, ready to catch the light. This circadian rhythm shows that trees follow the daily cycle of the planet just as animals do. In the realm of fruit trees, the process of grafting has allowed humans to manipulate nature in fascinating ways. Because fruit trees do not always grow true from seed, meaning the seed of a delicious apple might grow into a tree that produces bitter fruit, farmers clone the best trees. They take a cutting from a tree with desirable fruit and attach it to the rootstock of a strong and hardy tree. The two parts heal together and grow as one. There is even a single tree created by an artist that produces 40 different types of stone fruit, including peaches and plums and apricots and cherries, all ripening at different times during the season. This tree is a living mosaic of genetic diversity maintained by human care. Trees have also been central to human mythology and spirituality for as long as we have told stories. The banyan tree is sacred in India and is often associated with eternal life because of its ever-expanding aerial roots. The Bodhi tree, which is a type of fig, is famous as the place where the Buddha attained enlightenment. In Norse mythology, Yggdrasil is an immense ash tree that connects the 9 worlds of the cosmos with its roots reaching down into the underworld and its branches reaching up into the heavens. These stories reflect the universal human understanding that trees are the bridges between the earth and the sky and the givers of life and wisdom. The density of wood varies greatly among different species. Balsa wood is incredibly light and full of air, which makes it perfect for building model airplanes and rafts. On the other end of the spectrum is lignum vitae, which is a wood so dense and heavy that it sinks in water. It is self-lubricating due to its natural oils and was once used to make bearings for the propeller shafts of ships and submarines. Ironwood is another name given to several species with incredibly hard wood that can dull saws and axes. These variations in density are the result of how fast the tree grows and the structure of its cells. Forests also have a profound effect on the weather. In the Amazon rainforest, the trees release so much water vapor through transpiration that they create their own flying rivers of moisture in the atmosphere. This vapor forms clouds that rain back down on the forest and are carried by winds to water crops thousands of miles away. If the forest is removed, this cycle breaks and the land dries out. The trees essentially act as a biological water pump that keeps the continent humid and fertile. The decomposition of a tree is just as important as its growth. When a massive tree falls in the forest, it creates a gap that allows light to reach the forest floor. The log itself becomes a vibrant ecosystem. Fungi are the first to arrive, sending their mycelium threads into the wood to break down the tough lignin. Beetles bore tunnels into the bark, which opens the door for other insects. Salamanders and centipedes hunt in the damp, decaying wood. Slowly over decades, the log crumbles and turns into rich, dark humus. This soil is packed with nutrients that feed the seedlings that are racing to fill the gap of sunlight left by the fallen giant. In this way, the death of one tree ensures the life of the forest. Some trees have developed incredible partnerships with animals for protection. The whistling thorn acacia in Africa has swollen, hollow thorns that provide a home for stinging ants. When a browsing animal, like an elephant or a gazelle, tries to eat the leaves, the ants swarm out and attack the intruder, biting and stinging them on the sensitive nose and mouth. In return for this standing army of defenders, the tree provides the ants with shelter and a sweet nectar secretion. This symbiosis is so effective that the trees are rarely stripped bare, even in areas with many herbivores. The colors of trees are not limited to the green of chlorophyll. The copper beech has leaves that are deep purple or dark red throughout the summer. The rainbow eucalyptus has bark that peels away in strips to reveal bright green and blue and purple and orange and maroon layers underneath, looking like someone painted the tree with neon colors. These colors are natural and are caused by the way the bark matures and oxidizes when exposed to air. The blue spruce has needles covered in a fine white powder that makes them appear silvery blue, which helps reflect excess sunlight and protect the tree from drying out in high altitudes. Even in death, trees can be preserved for millions of years through the process of petrification. In the petrified forest of Arizona, there are logs of ancient trees that have turned to solid stone. This happened when the trees fell into a river and were buried by sediment and volcanic ash. Over time, groundwater rich in silica seeped into the wood, replacing the organic material, cell by cell, with minerals. The result is a perfect stone replica of the original tree, preserving the structure of the bark and the growth rings in vibrant reds and yellows and purples derived from iron and manganese in the soil. These stone trees give us a window into the forests of the Triassic period, long before humans walked the earth. The resilience of trees is evident in their ability to heal from wounds. If a branch breaks off or a deer rubs its antlers against the trunk, damaging the bark, the tree does not heal like an animal does by replacing the damaged tissue. Instead, it compartmentalizes the wound. It grows new wood around the injury, sealing it off to prevent the spread of infection or rot. The scar remains inside the tree forever, covered by new layers of growth. Sometimes you can see these scars as knots in a wooden board, which tell the story of a branch that once grew there years ago. The resilience of trees is evident in their ability to heal from wounds. If a branch breaks off or a deer rubs its antlers against the trunk, damaging the bark, the tree does not heal like an animal does by replacing the damaged tissue. Instead, it compartmentalizes the wound. It grows new wood around the injury, sealing it off to prevent the spread of infection or rot. The scar remains inside the tree forever, covered by new layers of growth. Sometimes you can see these scars as knots in a wooden board, which tell the story of a branch that once grew there years ago. Finally, trees are the ultimate survivors. They have lived through ice ages and asteroid impacts and shifting continents. They have adapted to almost every environment on land. They are the lungs of the planet and the foundation of our ecosystems. Whether it is a solitary olive tree growing on a rocky hillside for 1,000 years, or a vast northern forest stretching endlessly to the horizon, trees are a constant and comforting presence. They ask for nothing but a patch of soil and the light of the sun, and in return, they give us air to breathe and wood to build and beauty to behold. Their silent, steady growth is a reminder of the power of patience and the endurance of life itself. The journey of a tree often begins with a journey of a seed. While many seeds fall close to their parents, others are great travelers. The coconut is perhaps the most famous nautical voyager of the plant world. Its seed is encased in a thick, fibrous husk that traps air and makes it buoyant, allowing it to float on the ocean currents for months or even years. It can drift for thousands of miles across the open sea until it washes up on a sandy beach on a distant island where it sprouts and grows into a new palm tree, effectively colonizing new lands. On the other end of the spectrum is the sandbox tree, found in the tropical rainforests of the Americas. Its fruit is a pumpkin-shaped capsule that explodes with a loud crack when it is ripe, hurling its seeds at speeds of up to 150 miles per hour to ensure they land far enough away to find their own patch of sunlight. In the realm of ancient trees, the yew holds a special and somewhat somber place in history. These trees are often found in churchyards in Europe and can live for thousands of years. The yew is toxic to livestock, which is perhaps why they were planted in enclosed graveyards where animals could not graze. Their wood is incredibly strong and elastic, which made it the material of choice for the English longbow. A single piece of yew wood could bend with immense force without snapping, allowing archers to launch arrows great distances. Because yew trees can regenerate from a hollow shell and seem to live forever, they became symbols of death and resurrection in ancient cultures, connecting the physical world with the spiritual realm. The production of cork is another example of a sustainable relationship between humans and trees. Cork comes from the bark of the cork oak, which grows primarily in Portugal and Spain. Unlike other timber industries where the tree is cut down to harvest the wood, the cork oak is simply peeled. Skilled workers carefully strip away the thick outer layer of bark every 9 to 12 years. The tree is unharmed and immediately begins to grow a new layer of bark. A single cork oak can be harvested over a dozen times during its lifetime, providing stoppers for wine bottles and material for flooring and insulation, while continuing to absorb carbon and provide habitat for the endangered Iberian lynx. Trees also have their own version of hibernation. In the temperate zones, where winter brings freezing temperatures, trees must undergo a complex physiological change to survive. If the water inside their cells were to freeze, it would expand and rupture the cell walls, killing the tree. To prevent this, trees produce a natural antifreeze. As the days shorten and the temperature drops, they withdraw water from their cells and concentrate sugars and proteins, which lowers the freezing point of the sap. This process is called cold hardening. During the deep freeze of winter, the tree stands completely still and silent, its growth paused, its energy conserved, waiting for the trigger of warmth to restart the flow of life. The colors of autumn are not just a fading of life, but a chemical reaction. As the green chlorophyll breaks down and disappears, the yellow xanthophylls and orange carotenoids, which were there all along, become visible. But the brilliant reds and purples of maples and sumacs are created newly in the fall. These colors come from anthocyanins, which are pigments the tree produces when sugars are trapped in the leaves. The red pigment acts as a sunscreen for the leaves, protecting them from the sun's ultraviolet rays as the tree works to recover the last bit of nutrients before the leaf falls. A warm, sunny autumn with cool but not freezing nights produces the most vibrant red colors because it encourages the production of these pigments. In the art of bonsai, humans attempt to capture the grandeur of a full-size tree in miniature form. This practice, which originated in China and was refined in Japan, requires immense patience and skill. By carefully pruning the roots and branches and wiring the trunk into specific shapes, a gardener can create the illusion of great age and weathering. A bonsai tree is not a genetic dwarf, but a regular tree that is kept small through cultivation. Some bonsai trees are passed down through generations and are hundreds of years old, living in shallow pots and requiring daily attention. This art form represents a deep meditation on the nature of time and the resilience of life, as the tiny tree reflects the struggle and beauty of its wild counterparts. There are trees that bleed when they are cut. The dragon blood tree found on the island of Socotra looks like an umbrella turned inside out. When its bark is damaged, it oozes a thick, dark red resin that looks like blood. This resin has been used for centuries as a dye and a medicine and a varnish. In the past, it was believed to be the actual blood of dragons. Similarly, the rubber tree produces a milky white latex when it is tapped. This latex is the tree's defense mechanism, designed to gum up the mouthparts of insects that try to eat it. Humans discovered that by heating and treating this latex, they could create rubber, a material that revolutionized transportation and industry by allowing for the creation of tires and waterproof seals. The interactions between trees and the soil are profound. Trees that grow in rocky terrain can actually break rocks apart. As a root grows into a small crack in a stone, it exerts tremendous hydraulic pressure. Over years, as the root thickens, it forces the crack open wider and wider until the rock splits. This process contributes to the formation of soil by breaking down the bedrock into smaller mineral particles. At the same time, the fallen leaves of the tree create a blanket of organic matter on the surface, which creates a sponge that holds water and prevents the soil from washing away during heavy rains. In the vast boreal forests of the north, there is a phenomenon called the drunken forest. This occurs when the permafrost, or permanently frozen ground, begins to melt. As the solid ice beneath the soil turns to water, the ground becomes unstable and mushy. The trees, which are rooted in this top layer, lose their footing and begin to tilt in random directions. Some lean left and some lean right, creating a chaotic and disorienting appearance. This is a visible indicator of changing climate conditions, as the warming Earth alters the stability of the ground that supports these northern giants. The pollination of trees is a critical event that ensures the next generation. While many trees rely on the wind, others have evolved complex relationships with animals. The durian tree in Southeast Asia produces a large spiky fruit with a pungent odor. Its flowers bloom at night and are pollinated by bats. The bats are attracted to the nectar, and as they feed, pollen sticks to their fur. When they fly to the next flower, they transfer the pollen. Without these bats, the durian trees would not produce fruit. The Brazil nut tree depends on a specific type of orchid bee to pollinate its flowers. These bees are the only ones strong enough to pry open the heavy lid of the flower to reach the nectar. Because these bees also depend on specific orchids for their mating scents, Brazil nut trees are notoriously difficult to grow in plantations and are mostly harvested from the wild rainforest where the complex web of life is intact. Amber is a jewel that is born from a tree. It is fossilized tree resin that is hardened over millions of years. When a tree is injured, it secretes sticky resin to seal the wound. Sometimes an insect or a spider or a small lizard gets stuck in this goo. As the resin hardens and gets buried under sediment, it preserves the creature inside with perfect clarity. Much of what we know about the insects of the ancient world comes from these amber time capsules. We can see the delicate wings of a fly or the legs of an ant exactly as they looked 50 million years ago, suspended forever in the golden light of the fossilized tree sap. The deepest roots on record belong to a wild fig tree in South Africa, which had roots reaching down nearly 400 feet into the earth. These deep roots allow trees to access water tables that are far below the surface, enabling them to survive in arid landscapes where surface water is non-existent. Conversely, the roots of the redwood tree are surprisingly shallow, often only going down 6 to 12 feet, but they spread out horizontally for up to 100 feet, interlacing with the roots of neighboring trees. This mesh of roots creates a stable platform that prevents the massive trees from toppling over in storms, demonstrating that stability can come from connection rather than just depth. Trees also regulate the acoustic environment. A belt of trees planted between a highway and a neighborhood can reduce noise pollution significantly. The bark and the leaves absorb and deflect sound waves, creating a quieter and more peaceful environment. This is why walking into a forest often feels like stepping into a hushed cathedral. The soft floor of leaves and the textured trunks dampen the sharp noises of the outside world, leaving only the sounds of nature. This acoustic buffering is just one of the many invisible services that trees provide to improve the quality of human life. In the end, the life of a tree is a testament to the power of persistence. From a tiny seed that could be crushed by a foot grows a structure that can withstand hurricanes and weigh hundreds of tons. Trees connect the soil to the atmosphere and the past to the future. They are the quiet architects of our world, shaping the climate and the landscape and the air we breathe. Whether it is the lonely pine clinging to a granite cliff, or the majestic oak standing guard over a meadow, or the dense green wall of a tropical jungle, trees are the enduring witnesses of life on Earth. As we drift off to sleep, we can take comfort in the knowledge that the trees are out there, standing watch, breathing, and growing in the silence of the night.